We've lived in this house for nearly 40 years. We live in Rutherford, a small bedroom community convenient to commuters into New York. It has bus and train service. We've raised all of our children in here. Public schools are nice. Everybody has done well. The house is over 125 years old. It has been renovated by the previous owners. We continued it. Probably plan on staying in this house for many more years. Over the years, we've looked at our utility bills, and they're slowly increasing. The idea of being able to save some money was appealing. My background was sufficiently technical that I understood the advantages of solar systems. Looking into it, I saw that the federal and state programs made it easier to do. I was approached by a salesperson walking the aisles in Home Depot for a solar panel system. He said, "Let me sign you up for an interview with a salesperson." Agreed to it. A date was set. The fellow came in. Say, "Well, if you sign now, you get a 100% refundable deposit on the small amount of money that we need to initiate the process." So it was $100, so that was fine. So we signed up. Then we spoke to our son with degrees in economics and finance. And we told him what we were doing, so he immediately checked and said, "Well, the appeal of zero down is always great, but look what you're giving up. You'll be leaving a lot of money on the table so far as you won't be able to claim any of the state or federal credits. You won't be able to claim this and that and the other thing." The federal government told the states, you have to do something to encourage saving energy. Instead of the states running out and building huge solar electric or wind or wave-powered systems, they figured out a way to encourage homeowners and small and even some large industries to put in place solar power systems. So this gives the state some reason for them to satisfy the federal requirements. So for instance, that the state of New Jersey is doing something more economically and ecologically generate the power that's needed. So they reward homeowners and businesses directly for any solar power that they generate.
If you go paying right from the beginning for the full solar panels, you will get from the federal government 30% tax credit. You won't get a refund, but it'll be tax credit off of your taxes. So that's one part of it. The other part is public service or the state, where you get additional money for every 1,000
kilowatt hours
saved
that you generate.
By, with solar, you get another maybe $590 each time, and that is cash. The estimate is pretty good when it's over 8 years or 10 years or so, if you continue to get that. The 36 federal tax credit, that is the same year that you do it. If you haven't had enough taxes to get the credit, they will roll it over up to 5 years. So that's the federal, and that's 30% off of whatever we pay. Okay, so if we pay $23,000, it'll be 30% of that we get as a tax credit. Regarding the public service, and that's called TREC, that will be immediate for every 1,000 kilowatt solar hours that you have used. So that will go into your bank account immediately after you hit each 1,000 kilowatt hours.
So how long do we have to live and use the system in order to see the full benefit of it?
If everything works, it's 8 to 10 years. You are signing this for 25 years, but if you truly are saving on the solar, it would be 8 to 10 years that you would get, right now we'd end up maybe paying, let's say if it was $23,000, we might end up paying $15,000 after all the tax credits and the refund from the TREC. So even if we end up paying net amount $15,000, we might have been spending that on public service over time, or before that, 8 to 10 years even.
The system is 8 kilowatts. The system is not big enough to support the air conditioning and the microwaves and the boiler and everything else, but it covers a good portion of it. It was a little bit bigger than it needed to be, but we pay for that in cash up front in the cost of the system, but we'll get that back a little bit faster in the 1,000 kilowatt hours that we generate that the utility pays us for. It was not intended, and it will not support the total demand of the house year-round, but it'll pick up a good portion of the demand.
And it also depends on how many sunny days you have. If there are a lot of sunny days, it will bank some of that electric, the solar, for those days that are cloudy. You sort of net out with the quote, in our case, of the 8,100 kilowatts.
So here is the solar array on the roof. This one is almost complete. You can see one of the inverters and a combiner up there. There will be a total of 20 panels on the system. I believe there'll be 9 on this side and 11 on the opposite side. This is the north-facing side, but it gets very strong morning and early afternoon sun. So this is the old original utility meter. It only runs in one direction. This is additional equipment that was installed by the solar company. This is the main controller. This is a disconnect to allow utility workers to safely work on existing wiring so it doesn't backfeed to the grid. This is another box that they had to install in order to put voltage taps and current transformers to monitor the system. There'll be stickers on here warning fire departments that there is a solar array and parts of it could be energized unless they disconnect it over here. If our local demand is less than the output of the solar system, in effect, the idea that everybody loves is that the electric meter runs backwards. One of the things that the utility company has to do is install what they call a smart meter. The system that we installed is 8 kilowatts, so that's not enough to run the entire house, but that's a big chunk that we're not paying to the utility. So they want to get something from us because they are maintaining the wires and the poles and the infrastructure and everything else. When the sun doesn't shine, they still supply power to us. Only if we were completely off the grid, which we're not, would we not have to pay some fee to the utility. Years ago when this first started, the people who installed solar systems said, well, we want to get paid for the energy that you don't have to generate. So the original systems were based on the fact that you were buying electric power at retail rates, but the utilities were only reimbursing you at wholesale rates. And they thought that was very unfair. So now the laws have been changed. You get credit at the retail rate. So it's a little more fair. One fear that should be considered is that all of this came into effect due to legislation. Laws were passed that said the utility company has to pay X amount to homeowners and businesses who install solar systems. Well, it's only a law. It's not a fact of nature. What happens if the law changes? Well, then our return on our investment, we may have to live 100 more years to get the money back. But right now, the general thinking and the opinion is that this is a good thing to do, so we're probably safe in that respect. It has been seamless. The one that we're using is Venture Solar, based in Southington, Connecticut. They took care of the design, the verification, so they evaluate the location of the house, the angles of the roof, potential obstructions, permits, scheduling inspection, delivery of materials, having materials and labor showing up at the right time in the right place. They said they'll be here Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and sure enough, Monday morning at 7:45, the trucks were lined up outside, the people were ready to work. Quality of the work seems to be very good. They went to some extra effort. For instance, instead of running the electrical conduit up the wall and then around the gutter and then up onto the roof, he went to the trouble to locate it inside the attic to minimize the appearance of any of the additional hardware on the exterior walls. The interior work that they did going into our existing circuit breaker box, also very good. The principles and the codes that they're following, they verified that the electrical grounds were solid. They added 2 more additional ones outside. They added protection for the water meter. So no complaints at all. Certainly doing more than the minimum work required for the job. So what we haven't seen yet is our electric meter running backwards, but that'll have to wait until the final inspection is done
Right, they have
by
to
the
inspect
town,
it.
and then the utility company has to come in and put in their smart meter.
Right, after they put all the solar panels,
Hey,
then they have to get the electrical inspection from the town.
we didn't have to go to the town for anything. We didn't have to file anything with the state. We didn't have to fill out any federal forms. Everything is done by the company. If something needs a signature, they send us a form, they explain what it is, we sign it electronically. Very, like I said, conveniently, seamlessly. They've apparently done this before. We have a different story regarding the first company that we started with. The salesman said, easily refundable $100 deposit to get the process started. And we spent 45 minutes on the phone with their customer service department trying to cancel a contract. We had a 7-day buyer's regret. And so after 3 days, we knew enough about the financing and everything else to say, no, we don't want to go with the first company. So Bella called him up and said, I'd like to cancel the contract. He said, well, let me see what I can do to help you. I said, we don't want to be helped. We want to cancel the contract. He says, well, let me see what I can work out for you. He says, we don't want you to work out anything. We want you to cancel the contract. It was the most aggravating experience.
So we started with one guy, we signed the paper and we had 1 week to cancel. But then we ended up talking to 5 more solar companies. We ended up getting, what the rate would be if you pay it full. Well, I went back to the first guy, said, can you meet this kind of price? He said, oh no, so instead of $35,000, but quoted me. Well, when we tried to cancel with him, even though they said we can cancel within 1 week, this is important because if you deal with that specific company, it was not easy to cancel. I talked to 3 different people and the last one just kept talking over me. I said, I just want to cancel. I just kept repeating myself. He said, well, we'll talk again tomorrow. You seem to be agitated. It was not easy to cancel with that first person. We saw 2 others and we sort of said, okay, we'll give you a $100 deposit and then, we can get it back. And after talking to all of the people, the next 2 that actually took some money from us or quoted us, gave us our money back, no issues. So that's a very important thing for anyone who's interested in solar. Don't sign right away. The other 3 companies we talked to had no issue. We're going to tell you this is what we're planning on doing. So now we did a bidding war, okay? So they quoted us for the 8.1 kilowatt hours. We were quoted anything from like $3.50 per kilowatt or per watt. We reduced it down to 2 companies. And at that point, those 2 companies, we said, can you get it under 3? So the first company said, we'll get it for you at $3. The other company was at $3.10. So when I went and said, okay, to that other company, I came along and I said, I'm going to go with this other company. And he said, oh, and they're quoting me at $3 per watt. He said, I didn't know that you were in a rush. So he said, how about if I gave it to you for 2.9, all right, $2.90 per watt. I went back to this other company and he said, we'll match 2.9. And that's that's what we ended up going with, But it was interesting, how competitive and how different companies react, and deal with you as a customer. This company that we ended up going with was very good, kept us up to date, showed us all the documents, everything before we signed anything. And then every time, okay, we signed this, now we're going to take money from you, a certain deposit, 10%. Then after they got permits, they came along and said, we're ready to install. And so they, emailed us on that. And then when they came and, they went and took the amount for the installation, which was the bulk, and then they found they had to move one of the solar panels. So Larry agreed to it, but they emailed us to make sure we agree. So this company that we went with has been very
What do you
good.
think?
You know, it's kept us up to date, no issues, and they've moved a lot faster. We signed the contract, I think, the beginning of June, beginning of August, I meant. I'm looking for a date. Okay. And within 2 or 2.5 weeks, we already had someone ready to install. Biggest thing is working with this different companies out there. And my son did some of that research for me, telling me, I'm looking at these ratings, these are the companies you should think about and talk to them and so on. And the company that actually we're going with, because we already saw and talked to like 4 companies or 5, I said, you know what, we're already talking to other people. They said, give us a chance. And that was the one we ended up choosing. The one that said, take a look at our reviews. People have to be very careful. Do not sign anything that you're prepaying anything until you've interviewed a few different solar companies. You know, that's the biggest recommendation, is talk to all and then try to negotiate. How low can you go? You know, we got an excellent price at $2.90 per watt.
Because we're both retired, our income is much reduced. So we don't have a substantial income tax, which we would normally withhold a certain amount, so we don't get a big tax bill at the end of the year. We're both collecting Social Security now, and we had agreed, on the advice of our accountant, set up withholding on your Social Security payment. And we realized that if we continued to do that, we wouldn't have a big enough tax bill to take advantage of the tax credit. We don't get that as cash, you get it as a tax credit. So we had to change our Social Security payment schedule to have them not withhold any taxes. So we accumulate this tax liability, which we then apply the tax credit to. So, you know, not difficult to do, but, you know, something you need to remember to do, otherwise you'll miss out on the benefit. So far, I recommend the idea to anybody, and if you can afford the initial cash layout, have your accountant or your financially astute children look at it and choose the plan that you can afford that leaves the least amount of money on the table. Whatever credits and any rebates are available to you, make sure that you set it up so you can collect them. So like I said, we have to wait for the smart meter to be installed and the sun to shine, and then we'll see what happens.